I pulled up to my childhood home, a knot forming in my stomach despite the festive decorations. The familiar scent of turkey welcomed me as I carried my contribution to dinner, and that folder tucked under my arm. When I entered, Charlotte barely acknowledged me, but I still hoped we could mend things. I was wrong. Midway through dinner, she stood up, glass raised. "We took a family vote," she announced coldly, "and you are not family anymore." The table erupted in cheers. I simply laughed and said, "Then I guess you will not need this," placing the folder down. If you are watching this and have ever felt betrayed by family, drop a comment below telling me where you are from. Hit that subscribe button, because what happens next changed my life forever. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity, as everyone stared at the manila folder on the table. To understand how we got here, you need to know that Charlotte and I were once inseparable. Growing up, we shared everything from toys to secrets, our bond seemingly unbreakable. As the only son and eldest grandchild, I looked out for her, defending her against neighborhood bullies and helping with homework. She would follow me everywhere, her admiration evident in those wide eyes that now only held contempt. Everything changed 2 years ago when our grandfather passed away. As his will was read, the family business he had built from nothing was left primarily to me. Not because I was the favorite, but because I was the only one who had shown genuine interest working alongside him since I was 16 while pursuing my business degree. Charlotte had never expressed interest in the company, preferring her social media influencer aspirations, yet the inheritance became the catalyst for her resentment. "He should have split it equally," became her constant refrain, despite her never having worked a day at Thompson Manufacturing. Our parents, though initially understanding of grandfather's decision, gradually aligned with Charlotte. They failed to recognize that the business was not just an asset, but a responsibility that required dedication and knowledge. Under my leadership, the company flourished. I modernized operations, secured larger contracts, and increased employee benefits. While profits grew, so did Charlotte's bitterness. She began spreading rumors among relatives that I had somehow manipulated grandfather, painting me as calculating rather than committed. He probably changed the will when Grandpa was too sick to understand what he was signing. I overheard her telling our cousin Amanda at a family gathering. The accusation stung, but I chose to focus on honoring grandfather's legacy rather than defending myself against baseless claims. 6 months ago, our accountant flagged concerning discrepancies in our financial statements. Someone had been siphoning small amounts regularly, totaling nearly $300,000 over 3 years. The investigation led to an uncomfortable discovery: Charlotte had access to company accounts through her friendship with our former bookkeeper. Bank records showed matching deposits to her personal account on days when funds disappeared from the business. I confronted her privately, showing her the evidence but offering her a chance to explain. "This has to be a mistake," I said, desperately wanting an explanation that would exonerate her. Instead of remorse, her eyes hardened. "You think you are so perfect, do you not? Grandpa's golden boy who got everything while the rest of us got nothing." Her voice dripped with venom. "Nobody will believe you. This family has always been about loyalty, and everyone knows you put business before blood." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard. A family photo crashed to the floor, the glass shattering around our smiling faces from happier times. That moment crystallized my understanding that my sister had been planning this betrayal for years, patiently executing her scheme while turning my family against me. Despite everything, I still hoped for reconciliation. I compiled all the evidence in a folder, not as a weapon, but as a last resort. I wanted to give her one more chance to come clean to the family herself before the situation escalated further. That hope led me to accept the Thanksgiving invitation, the folder my insurance against complete character assassination. I never imagined she would orchestrate such a public execution of our relationship. The Thanksgiving table looked like something from a magazine cover. My mother had outdone herself with the decorations: auburn leaf garlands, miniature pumpkins, and candles that cast a golden glow over the feast. 12 places were set with the heirloom china that only emerged for special occasions. The perfection of the setting contrasted sharply with the undercurrent of tension that greeted me when I arrived. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia sat near the head of the table, their twin daughters Madison and Morgan beside them. My younger cousins Jason and Tyler were busy on their phones, until my mother instructed them to put the devices away. My father occupied his usual position at the head with my mother opposite him. Charlotte sat at his right hand, the position once reserved for me as the eldest son. A small but pointed realignment that did not escape my notice. "So glad you could join us," my mother said as I took my seat, her tone suggesting I was an acquaintance rather than her son. The formality hurt more than outright hostility might have. Conversation flowed awkwardly around me, family members discussing events I had not been invited to, and inside jokes I was no longer privy to. Charlotte dominated the discussion frequently, mentioning her growing social media presence and hinting at mysterious business opportunities on the horizon. "The turkey is delicious, Mom," I offered, attempting to normalize the situation. She nodded curtly, turning immediately to compliment Charlotte on the cranberry sauce she had brought store-bought, yet receiving effusive praise. As the main course concluded, I noticed meaningful glances exchanged between family members. Charlotte checked her watch twice, apparently waiting for a predetermined moment. When my father began serving pie, she stood tapping her glass with a spoon. "Before we continue, I have something important to address." She began, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of her social media videos. "Family means everything to us, Thompsons. We support each other, celebrate each other's successes, and most importantly, we protect each other." Several heads nodded in agreement. My stomach tightened. Unfortunately, not everyone at this table shares those values. Her gaze locked onto me. Some put profit above people, business above blood. Uncle Robert murmured agreement. My father's face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened around his napkin. "For months we have watched as the company our grandfather built has been twisted into something unrecognizable. Employees who served faithfully for decades let go. Family traditions discarded. All while someone sits on his throne counting money that should have been shared. This characterization was completely false. I had retained every long-term employee and even created a profit-sharing program." But the family nodded as if Charlotte spoke gospel truth. "Last week we held a family meeting, a meeting I knew nothing about. We voted unanimously that actions have consequences. Values matter. Loyalty matters." My cousin Madison looked down at her plate, the only one showing any discomfort with the proceedings. Charlotte raised her glass higher. "We voted, and the decision was clear. You are not family anymore. We are severing ties with you professionally and personally." The announcement hung in the air for a beat before Uncle Robert started clapping, followed quickly by the others. Even my parents joined the applause, their faces solemn, as if witnessing a necessary but difficult ceremony. Effective immediately, Charlotte continued over the applause. "We expect you to begin the process of transferring company shares to be distributed equally among family members as grandfather would have wanted." The absurdity of her demand might have been comical if it were not so painful. Grandfather had been explicit about his wishes, documented and legally binding. My mind flashed to recent encounters with family members. 2 weeks ago, Aunt Patricia had called asking detailed questions about company structure, claiming interest in having Tyler intern there. Uncle Robert had invited me to golf, probing about succession plans, while suggesting his financial expertise might benefit the company. Even my mother had asked to see recent financial statements, citing concern about my workload. They had been gathering intelligence, I realized. Charlotte had orchestrated not just a public humiliation, but a coordinated takeover attempt. The betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined, extending through every branch of our family tree. "You have destroyed this family with your greed," my father said, breaking his silence. "Your grandfather would be ashamed." The statement sliced through me. Grandfather had been my mentor and greatest supporter. We had spent countless hours discussing his vision for the company's future, his pride evident as I learned every aspect of the operation. To have his memory weaponized against me was the cruelest cut. Charlotte smiled triumphantly, already celebrating her victory. The family I had loved my entire life sat watching my public execution, not with regret, but with righteous satisfaction. 20 years of memories, holidays, celebrations, struggles overcome together, all erased because of lies crafted by someone I once would have trusted with my life. I felt something break inside me, not in defeat, but in clarification. The illusion of unconditional family love shattered, revealing the transactional reality beneath. Yet even facing this unified betrayal, I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I did not yell. I did not cry. Instead, I laughed softly, the sound cutting through their celebration like a knife. They had expected anger, defensiveness, perhaps even begging. My calm response visibly unnerved them. "Then I guess you will not need this," I said, my voice steady, as I placed the leather-bound portfolio on the table. I had labeled it simply, Thompson Family Business in gold-embossed letters. Charlotte reached for it first, her triumphant smile still fixed in place. Her confidence made sense. She thought she held all the cards, had turned everyone against me so thoroughly that nothing I presented could change their minds. "What is this supposed to be, your resignation letter?" She smirked, flipping open the cover with theatrical flourish. The smirk froze, then collapsed as she scanned the first page. Inside were meticulously organized sections. Bank statements showing transfers from company accounts to her personal accounts. Copies of forged signatures on company checks. Email correspondence, with competitors sharing proprietary information and surveillance images of her entering the financial office after hours on dates matching unauthorized access to the accounting system. This is fabricated," she stammered, her voice rising an octave. "He made this all up." I remained silent as she frantically flipped through the pages, her face draining of color. When she reached the affidavit from the former bookkeeper confessing to their scheme, a sound escaped her throat that barely sounded human. The scream that followed silenced the room. "You lying snake!" she shrieked, attempting to rip pages from the binder. I had anticipated this reaction. Every document was preserved in protective sleeves and backed up digitally with copies already provided to the company's attorneys. "What is it?" my mother asked, reaching for the folder. Charlotte clutched it to her chest, wild-eyed. "Do not listen to him. He has always been jealous of me. He is trying to frame me because I exposed him." My father forcibly took the binder from her, his authoritative presence momentarily overriding her panic. As he read, his face transformed from confusion to disbelief to a coldness I had never witnessed. "You stole from the company?" he asked Charlotte quietly, the question more devastating in its softness. "It is not what it looks like," she pleaded, her performance crumbling. "I deserved that money. He was hoarding everything for himself." I cleared my throat, drawing their attention. Page 27 shows transfers from the company charitable foundation to a shell account. Money intended for children's cancer research. I did not need to elaborate on the particular cruelty of this theft. Our younger cousin Emily had survived childhood leukemia because of treatment funded by similar foundations. The revelation rippled through the family. Aunt Patricia gasped, reaching for the evidence. Uncle Robert's face darkened as he read over her shoulder. "There is more," I continued, my voice detached, as if discussing a case study rather than the implosion of my family. The final section contains Charlotte's correspondence with Westfield Industries, our main competitor. She offered proprietary manufacturing processes and client lists in exchange for a leadership position once our company was destabilized enough for acquisition. Charlotte lunged across the table, knocking over wine glasses and sending cranberry sauce splashing across the pristine tablecloth. "You went through my emails. That is illegal. I will sue you for invasion of privacy." Her outburst only confirmed the authenticity of the documents. My cousin Madison, who had been quiet throughout dinner, spoke up. "Charlotte told me last month that she was going to make things right for the family. She said you had been stealing from the company, and we needed to unite against you." Other family members began sharing similar stories of Charlotte's manipulations, each revelation building upon the last. The web of lies she had constructed was impressive in its complexity and devastating in its effectiveness. "I gave you a chance," I said, quietly to Charlotte, speaking directly to her for the first time. "When I discovered the theft, I came to you privately. I offered to help you make restitution without legal consequences. You chose this path, not me." "You self-righteous bastard," she hissed, mascara streaking down her flushed cheeks. "You think you are so perfect. Grandpa's precious heir. You have no idea what it is like living in your shadow." My father, still processing the evidence before him, turned to me with new eyes. "Why did you not come to us with this immediately? Would you have believed me over her? I asked simply. His silence was answer enough. I stood straightening my jacket. Despite the vindication, there was no joy in this moment, only the hollow recognition that the damage was irreparable. The authorities have already been notified about the embezzlement. As for the company, it remains where grandfather intended it to be. I will not be transferring any shares. I addressed the table at large. You all made your choice clear today. You decided I was not family before knowing all the facts. I will not forget that. Charlotte made one last desperate attempt. He is bluffing. There is no investigation. As if on cue, my phone chimed with a message. I glanced at it briefly. That was Detective Sanderson. He would like to speak with you tomorrow, Charlotte. I suggested you bring a lawyer. The family that had voted me out now sat in stunned silence, the remains of Thanksgiving dinner growing cold between us. I had come seeking reconciliation and found condemnation. I had offered truth and they had chosen comfortable lies. Even now vindicated completely, I saw calculation rather than contrition in some of their eyes' assessment of how this would affect them rather than remorse for their betrayal. You know, I said, reaching for my coat when you announced your vote, part of me was relieved. Family should be the people who believe in you, who give you the benefit of the doubt, who listen to your side before passing judgment. By that definition, we stopped being family long before today. I walked out, leaving behind the fractured remains of what had once been my foundation. The folder stayed on the table, a monument to truth that arrived too late to save relationships, but just in time to prevent further damage to my grandfather's legacy. 6 months passed like a strange dream. Winter yielded to spring, then summer bloomed across the city. The legal proceedings against Charlotte concluded with her accepting a plea deal, restitution of all stolen funds, 5 years probation, and community service. She avoided jail time largely due to my refusal to press for maximum penalties, a decision some might view as weakness, but I considered the last obligation of brotherhood. The family business not only survived but thrived after the scandal. I implemented transparency measures to prevent similar abuses and focused on expanding our charitable initiatives. The shadow of betrayal gradually receded as I immersed myself in work that honored my grandfather's vision while establishing my own legacy. My family made scattered attempts at reconciliation. My mother called first, her voice small and unfamiliar on my answering machine. We made a terrible mistake, she said. Please call us. I eventually did, but maintained careful boundaries. Coffee at neutral locations replaced holiday dinners. Conversations about weather and current events substituted for meaningful connection. The fracture had not healed, merely scabbed over. Uncle Robert approached me at a community fundraiser, awkwardly extending his hand. I should have asked questions, he admitted. It was easier to believe Charlotte. She told us what we wanted to hear. His honesty was refreshing but insufficient to restore trust. I accepted his apology with civility rather than warmth. My father proved the most difficult. Pride prevented him from acknowledging his role in my public humiliation. Our interactions remained formal, businesslike, a painful transition for a relationship once defined by baseball games and fishing trips. Perhaps someday we would find our way back to something resembling closeness, but that path remained unclear. Charlotte herself made no attempts to contact me, her social media accounts dormant after a final post claiming she was taking time for self-reflection. Through family, I heard she had moved to Arizona, starting fresh, where her reputation remained untarnished. I wished her neither harm nor success, finding freedom in emotional neutrality. While old connections withered, new ones flourished in unexpected places. Martin, from accounting, who had helped uncover Charlotte's scheme, became a trusted friend, rather than just a colleague. His unwavering integrity during the investigation revealed a character worth knowing beyond professional settings. Sophia, a lawyer who specialized in financial crimes and had consulted on Charlotte's case, challenged me intellectually and eventually romantically. Our shared experiences with family complications created an understanding that needed no explanation. She had rebuilt her life after disowning her alcoholic father, showing me that family could be chosen rather than merely inherited. My therapist, Dr. Winters, guided me through the complex grief of losing family while they still lived. Mourn the relationships you thought you had, he advised. Then decide what kind of relationships you want to build going forward with or without them. This wisdom shaped my approach to healing. I stopped measuring myself against impossible standards of forgiveness and instead focused on building a life defined by authenticity rather than obligation. I established boundaries based on respect rather than shared DNA, a revolutionary concept, after years of allowing family to determine my worth. The true test came when Thanksgiving approached again. Sophia suggested hosting a dinner ourselves, inviting those who had stood by me along with others who might be seeking community during the holidays. Create new traditions, she encouraged. Define family your way. That Thanksgiving looked nothing like the ones from my childhood. Martin brought his famous cornbread stuffing. Sophia's college roommate flew in from Seattle with her new baby. 2 junior executives from work who had no local family joined us. My elderly neighbor, widowed and alone, brightened our gathering with stories from his 78 years of life experience. We ate on mismatched plates around a table extended with a desk. The food was eclectic contributions reflecting diverse backgrounds rather than rigid tradition. Conversation flowed naturally without the undercurrents of resentment or competition that had poisoned family gatherings for years. As I looked around at these people who had chosen to spend their holiday with us, who had chosen connection and authenticity, I finally understood the lesson of the previous year's painful Thanksgiving. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. I had lost relatives that day, but found my true family in the process. The greatest gift came in realizing that family is not a static inheritance, but a dynamic choice. We decide who deserves access to our lives, who earns the privilege of our trust, who merits invitation to our tables. This understanding liberated me from the obligation to maintain toxic connections simply because they shared my last name. Sometimes the bravest act of self-respect is walking away from those who cannot see your worth. Sometimes the wisest form of forgiveness is releasing expectations that others will change. And sometimes the most profound form of healing comes not from repairing what was broken, but from building something entirely new from the fragments. Have you ever had to redefine what family means to you? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the family we are born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps someone else find the courage to stand in their truth. Until next time, take care of yourself and those who truly deserve your loyalty.